From tote bags to t-shirts, from mugs to mouse pads, and many things in between. All of them can be found right now at the Politicrat Daily Podcast online store. You can find them as part of the brand new Spring Spectacular Collection for 2021. All items designed by yours truly, Omar Moore. So take a look around. Lots to see. Lots of colors as well. There's surely something for you at the Politicrat Daily Podcast online store in the brand new Spring Spectacular Collection for 2021. More items are to be added. They are coming, so stay tuned for more and visit right now the-politicrat.myshopify.com, or you can go to thepoliticrat.com and scroll down to the online store on the homepage. Thank you very much for your support. Please patronize the store right now. Welcome to the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. It is Saturday, February the 6th, 2021. On this edition of the Politicrat, why do we do what we do? Why do we do what we do? I'm not talking about what we do for a living or anything like that. Why do we do things sometimes the way we do them? I know perhaps an invitation to the philosophical, the realms of thought around this subject matter may seem a little bit more dense, or maybe not. But this is something that I've been thinking about. So I'd like you to think about it too. Coming up next.
I can see this has become a struggle between good and evil. Satan has a question.
Yes, sir, Chaplain Gill, but since neither one of us are God, I don't think either one of us are in any position to say who's good and who's evil.
Why don't you just ask your question?
We were discussing the disciples. What color were they?
Well, I don't think we know that for certain.
But they were Hebrews, were they not?
That's right.
As was Jesus. Jesus was also a Hebrew.
Why don't you just ask your question?
What color were the original Hebrews?
I have told you that we don't know that for certain.
Then you can't believe for certain that Jesus was white.
Just a moment. God is white. Isn't it obvious?
Well, that is obvious, but we don't know if it's obvious that God is white. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that Jesus did not have blonde hair and blue eyes. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that the images of Jesus that are on prison walls and churches throughout the world are not historically correct, because history teaches us that Jesus was born in a region where the people had color. There's proof in the very Bible that you ask us to read in Revelations 1st chapter, verse 14 and 15, that Jesus had hair like wool and feet the color of brass.
Just what are you saying?
I'm not saying anything. I'm proving to you that Jesus was not, and I might quote one of our Indian brothers, he was not a paleface. Amen.
Isn't that interesting?
That was Christopher Plummer with Denzel Washington in Spike Lee's Malcolm X. Christopher Plummer, who was playing a prison chaplain in the scene you just heard from Spike Lee's 1992 film, passed away yesterday at the age of 91. Christopher Plummer was a grand master of the stage and the screen and the big screen. Plummer had many roles dating back to the 1950s. He took on pretty much anything you can think of, a highly eclectic actor who did lead roles and supporting roles with equal amounts of alacrity and ease. Plummer was born in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and performed with a sense of grace and brilliance throughout a 70-year career. It's hard to imagine fewer in the business of acting, in the profession of acting, who have been around longer than Christopher Plummer. And what's interesting is that all of the people that we have lost this year, at least the significant names I can think of, Cloris Leachman, Cicely Tyson, and of course now Christopher Plummer, are all veterans of the screen. And all of them gave most of their lives to that profession, and in such an excellent way at that. All of them died in their 90s. Living legends no more, but legends that will endure. Christopher Plummer was somebody who may have had a reputation amongst some in the business for being a little prickly and difficult, if something even worse than that, to hear some people tell it. I will say this about Christopher Plummer on a positive note, because, as they say, you don't want to speak ill of those who have passed well. Certainly not Mr. Plummer, who I don't know about in terms of exploits, but I do know about in terms of the work he left behind. One of the most amazing thespians there has been. His range so very diverse. Whether it was Shakespeare, whether it was The Sound of Music, or whether it was The Insider, whether it was playing a villain in some other movie, or whether it was him in Inside Man, or in the clip you heard with Denzel Washington in Spike Lee's other film, Malcolm X, that both Denzel and Christopher Plummer appeared in together. Christopher Plummer also had won an Oscar for Beginners when he played opposite Ewan McGregor, playing a man who finally came out of the closet. Beginners was a decent film, but the performance of Christopher Plummer was the very thing that kept that film together in the first place. Plummer also, more recently, was in the film All the Money in the World, playing J. Gordon Getty. J. Paul Getty. You may remember, of course, that it was Kevin Spacey who had originally played that role. In fact, the scenes were shot and then had to be cut out, and then the performance redone, of course, because we learned about who Kevin Spacey really was. And Christopher Plummer ended up fitting right into the role and doing a very good job indeed. This is a very, very tough time because we've lost a lot of people already. And most of them are in their 80s or 90s or were. John Chaney, the Temple University men's basketball coach, who died last week. And then before that, of course, Cicely Tyson, who died the previous week as well. In fact, last week at the age of 96. Cloris Leachman the day before at the age of 94. Then, of course, the week before that, it was Hank Aaron and Larry King, both in their mid-80s. They say that only the good die young, but it certainly did not apply to people like Cicely Tyson or Hank Aaron or Larry King or Cloris Leachman, Christopher Plummer, John Chaney. Christopher Plummer, a special kind of actor, somebody who you knew had you as a fellow actor in very good hands. You had to watch him work and marvel at the kinds of things he would do. And he did pretty much all of them very well indeed. So I turned my attention now to something that's one of those and now for something completely different moments. And it's really the genesis of this episode, the core of this episode, which is going to be a lot shorter than yesterday's was. But nonetheless thought-provoking, I hope. Why do we do the things we do as human beings? I know that's something that may not be the quote-unquote sexiest of topics. But it is something that you could start a dinner conversation with or cocktail party conversation with, whenever those will ever materialize again in terms of in social settings. Why do we do what we do? And it's not about occupation. Why do we do what we do in terms of, economics or livelihood or anything like that? It's why do we behave as we do? Is it something to do with self-preservation? Is it something to do with a role or type that we want to play or that we want to have a fantasy job in? Speaking of that, why do we do what we do? Is it out of fear? Is it out of insecurity? Is it out of confidence? Lack of confidence? Why do we do what we do? Is it because we maybe are trying to show our best face? Is it because we lie to ourselves and lie to others, including to each other? I don't know. Why is it that people do what they do? And when I say why is it, I really do want to know what precipitates the methodology of why people do what they do. When you see something in the news or you read something in the news and you say, what propelled someone to do that? That's kind of where I'm going with this on this episode. What would propel somebody to do something? And it could be something good or not so good. And I just really don't know where to start, except to say that is the question that I am going to at least pose over the next few minutes to you, dear listener, to you. I think in order to try to answer or think about this question of why people do what they do, it might be helpful to go to why you do what you do, or why I do what I do. And again, it's not about occupation or anything. It's about the decisions we make or the things we do in our everyday lives that do send a signal, a message, a crystallizing of something that we are doing or being. And I just want to know why. Why are we doing those things? Is it for self-protection and self-preservation, or is it for something else? Is it a ruse so that later on we kind of reveal who we really are? Is that not the modus operandi of some of us as human beings? Because we don't want to turn people off. But you usually find out what's what as things start to sour. I don't know. It's not like I'm speaking from any kind of a grand experience. But I still want an answer to my question, damn it. I want an answer to my question, which is, why do we do the kinds of things that we do? And this isn't even to do with politics. I just want to have some kind of vision about where President Biden is, for example. And I want to know what he's going to be doing. But I want to know, and again, I did say not really for politics, but I'm just curious, what is he going to do and why? And why are you doing what you're doing right now? If you're doing anything, have you called those 100 senators? Why have you not? And is there a reason why you're not? Are you really listening to the news and what's coming out of certain senators' mouths? And isn't it not true that some of these senators just say things? I don't know. I mean, I would love to know why people do what they do. Why do people go out and not wear masks? I mean, I have talked about that before and why I think that happens. But why do you think it happens? Why do you think that people do not wear a mask? Why? Say why. And of course, you do know this, dear listener, that, federal mask ordinances have been put in place by President Biden, and his executive orders signed about a week or two ago. He's done so much in just over 2 weeks already on the executive order side, and no surprise. But I just don't know. I mean, I could really struggle with this and even talking about it for the next 5 or 10 minutes, but I don't want to spend too much more time talking about it other than just thinking about it, thinking about the possibility of why a person does what they do. Why? Is it all about fear? I would hate to know that would be it, because then that's just, I think, more depressing than ever. You would do that out of I don't know. There's always a method to the madness, even if the madness is never understood. But all the while, it is that rare time you stop to think. And do you ever give any thought to why people do what they do? Something to be considering, I would imagine, in this, crazy era that we live in. I just don't know. I mean, you see people licking shelves of deodorant. You've seen the video, that kid, that white kid, thug, licking deodorant on the shelves of a supermarket. Now, someone might say to me, well, there's a mental situation there. Well, yeah, of course. But why is it being done in the first place? Phew. Wow. I guess, again, the question is why. And I got to tell you, I have no direct answer for it. As I think you can tell, I am fascinated by that question of why we as people do what we do, why we as human beings do what we do. And again, I want to reiterate, this is not about someone's profession. It's about us, how we behave, why we behave the way we do. And I get it. Yes, there's upbringing and there's this and there's that and the other. But I just feel it deserves more of an answer than that. That question's a pretty bloomin' big one. I don't know. I just think that there should be a more fulsome answer, a sizable answer. I don't know. I would love to have a guest on to talk about this, and I'm sure in the coming days and weeks I will procure one. But I am remaining ever fascinated by the question. I really am. Why do you do what you do? I can't shake this. I really can't. I just try to, but I can't. But as I said, I will go back to this subject matter at some point in the near future on this podcast. I want to provide a couple of book recommendations. I normally do one, but lately I've been doing two. One of them is Eddie Glaude's book, Begin Again. It's about James Baldwin and the movement and contemporary America, the activist movement of James Baldwin. And I find that to be a highly important read, an enjoyable read. It's by Eddie Glaude. His last name is spelled Glaude, Eddie Glaude Jr. He is a professor at the African American Studies Department at Princeton in New Jersey, at Princeton University. So I urge you to read Begin Again by Eddie Glaude. And as for voices, well, here's one to listen to.
Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Well, it's kind of redundant for me to even ask, isn't it? Who was that? I think you know the answer. Wonders never cease, do they ever? And this question about why people do what they do is one that I constantly, or more often than not, revel in. Well, I'm going to find it marvelous to adjourn for this episode. Yes, it really is that brief an episode. Might be the shortest one in a long time, certainly of this year, 2021. By the way, I should say that next Friday, February 12th, I will be guest hosting a Zoom film discussion held by the Mechanics Institute of San Francisco, California. I'll be speaking and moderating a film discussion about the documentary Anita, Speaking Truth to Power. That's coming up next Friday, February the 12th, 2021, on Zoom. Please head to Mechanics Institute for details. Type that into your search browser and you'll get the website. Follow along from there and buy your tickets now or get your tickets free of charge. Come on down and join in. I did this a few months ago with the film I Am Not Your Negro, the documentary by Raoul Peck. Got a lot of great rave reviews and comments. Thank you very much for listening to this edition of the Politicrat. Head to the Politicrat store right now. The online store has got everything you need at the-politicrat.myshopify.com. Thank you very much for listening. I'm Omar Moore.